Hello, everyone. This is part 5 of chapter 10. So we're going to cover more things about classes in Python. In this set of slides, we will cover several topics. First, we're going to take a look at what we mean by the default values for class attributes. And then we're going to see class variables. And then we'll talk at the end of this slideshow about the docstring. Okay, so let's take a look at the first topic, default values for class attributes. Same thing that we saw before when we declared a function with a default values. Default values, basically, when you call the function, just to give you a reminder, when you call the function without passing any arguments as new values for the parameters of the function, the default values of the parameters will be assigned inside the function and will be called the function with these values. Same thing we do over here in the classes. So when we create a class, in the class, we always have the init function. So that being said, in the init function, we will have, or in the init method, we will have all the attributes that we need for our class. If you want to initiate default values for these attributes, you will put them in the header of the init method, okay? So, and you will assign them with the equal sign, and then you add the values. So that being said, when you create an object from this class, as we see over here, P1 is type of person. We usually, when we create an object from a class, we have to assign the values for the attributes. In this example, you see over here, we said P1, and we did not assign, when we make it equal to class person, we did not assign anything. What's going to happen, P1, it's going to have the values for its attribute. The name is going to be Mike, and the age is going to be 25. In this example, if you run this example in PyCharm, and then you try to print what is the value inside p1.name, it's going to give you Mike, the printout, okay? So that's about the default values. Another topic that we have something called class variables. What is the class variables? Class variables are different than the attributes that we saw inside the init method. The class variables are declared outside any of the class methods. So we do not have it as part of any method. It's separate. And because they are owned by the class, every instance that we make or every object that we make from this class is going to share the same value for these class variables. Okay, it's going to be more clear in the following example. Okay, so that being said, we do not declare it inside the init method, and for conventions, usually we declare these variables right after the class header and before the init method. Okay, here's an example of a class variable, and let's assume the class variable is emp count. This is going to be added a class variable to the employee class that we have seen in a previous module, and this emp count is going to keep track of how many numbers or what is the number of employees that we created from this class. Okay, so the way, based on what we learned in the previous slide, we will add this variable inside the class, but before we create or we call any or we define any other method. Okay, so this is the area where the class variable should go to. Okay, so in this example, we have the employee count and we assigned it to 0 because at the beginning, when we create a class, we do not have any employee. We did not create any object from this class. So in this case, it's going to be assigned to 0. All right. And here in the header of my init method, there's one more thing I changed over here to my init method. And the only thing that I changed over here is that every time I create an object from this class, I need to update the class variable, which is the emp count. Okay, I need to update it. So whenever this method get invoked, that means a new employee is being added or a new object from the class employee is created. That being said, when I create a new employee, the number of employee is gonna increase by 1. So I want to make sure that I always add 1 to the current employee count. And the way to assign it, you do not just say emp count plus equal 1. No, you have to make sure that you say the class dot the emp count. Okay, so in this way, we specify that this emp count is belong to the class and increase it by 1 every time I create an object from this class. All right. And in my main, if I want to print out the number of employees that has been created from the class employee, I basically can, in my main, I can just print out employee, which is the name of my class, dot emp count. Okay, so this is the class name, which is employee, and here is the variable name, which is the emp count. So this is the way to access and print out the emp count or the class variable. Next, and the last thing we're going to talk about in this slideshow is the docstring. What is the docstring and what do we mean by the docstring? Okay, docstring is one of the ways that we use to document our work. Okay, we've talked about it before. We said that it's very important to write documentation for your code or for your program because it's easy to remember in a couple of days about your program and the functions that you defined and the way they work, but it's very hard to remember after, like, let's say a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Okay, and you probably guys already start to notice that when you go back to your old programs. Okay, so what is the docstring is going to do? Docstring is basically going to be one of the ways that we can document every method that we have or every class. Okay, the way it works, it has some type of standard. Okay, first, the doc string should be the line that we specify after the header of any method or any class or any function that we declare. Okay, and it always starts with a capital letter. The first line starts with a capital letter and ends with a period. Okay, and the first line always needs to be short and has to be a general description of what is the class or the method we are documenting, what it's going to do. Just short and brief. Okay, if we have more lines to describe or to document our class or our method or our function, we need to write it down after that, but the second line after the first line always needs to be blank, and we will start to write from the third line basically. Okay, so this one will give you a separation between the general description of this thing you're trying to document and the details about it. Okay, after that empty line, we will write probably, it depends on how much description you want to write, but you will have a paragraph or maybe a couple of paragraphs that will describe what the object is going to do. Okay, here is an example of our method or of our the employee class. So as you guys can see here, we have it documented and between 3 quotation marks. It has to be between 3 quotation marks. Okay, it doesn't matter, you can have them single or double quotation marks, and then you write what do you want to see. As you notice over here, we started with a capital letter and then we ended the first line with a period. We just want to make it very simple at this example over here. We didn't have to have more description about it. If we need to have more description about it, we need to have the second line blank and we start writing from the third line to write more details about it. Okay, since it's between 3 quotation marks, we have a magic method in Python. You see over here, everything between the 3 quotation marks. We have something called __ doc __. Okay, so what is this method is going to do? If you call it with the object that you want to associate it with, for example, my class is employee, and then I say dot __ doc __, what is it going to do? Well, this is going to do actually go back again to the header of my class and take a look at what is the right after the header, what is inside the 3 quotation marks that we have and display it. Okay, so here is the call for the function, or this call basically of this magical or magic function or magic method underscore underscore doc underscore underscore. When we associate it with the class employee, it's going to go ahead to the class employee and see what we wrote for documentation, or what is the value of the doc string, and then it's going to display it to you. And that's about it for this set of slides.